I have been telling you for years that there are cities and beings that exist inside of this planet. There are 6 caverns, 4 are occupied, 2 unoccupied in 1970 AD. The information that I've disclosed to the public as far back as the early 70s is fact. And now the media is pumping all of this information 20 years later. I was called crazy. Now they all talk about Agartha and Shambhala. There are subterranean worlds that do exist. There are many different species living within this world. Your Bible says in Isaiah 26:18, in the earth and the inhabitants of the world, showing those in the earth and those who Yaa-Nun, meaning to dwell, remain, sit, abide, inhabit the earth. And I quote, we have been with child, we have been in pain, we have as it were brought forth wind, we have not wrought any deliverance in the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. Some extraterrestrials came to inhabit the earth, and travel back and forth, while others have made the planet Tiamat, Earth, their permanent home. In an article entitled UFOs, The Shaver Mystery and the Hollow Earth by Gene Steinberg, author Richard S. Shaver speaks of a journey that he took to the center of the earth and the so-called ancient people that he encountered. Shaver said these underground people were called the Daros, who are for the malevolent, disagreeable, people in a thin 4-foot-tall species who are said to be the best of a species called Taro. They are for the benevolent, agreeable, people. He also claimed that the earth is honeycombed with caverns, and that these caverns extend incredible distances into the earth, are still inhabited with descendants of a race of people who left the earth about 12,000 years ago, because it was becoming radioactive, and that now, due to the radioactivity, these people in the caves are degenerated so that they don't have much intelligence. However, they do have the ancient machines left by the ancient race, which increases intelligence, but the machines themselves are contaminated and evil things resulted. Shaver claimed that the Daros were waiting for the right time to return to surface world and take over. The Daros, Shaver said, tuned into his wavelength and were delighted in tormenting him. A fellow ufologist, Ray Palmer, and editor of a science fiction magazine, Amazing Stories, in the 1940s, was at Shaver's home one time and heard the same voices that Shaver heard. Shaver wrote that some time later the Taros made contact with him and took him to visit their cavern world. Shaver told his colleague Palmer that there were immense levels on levels of ancient buildings and places and streets and houses going in all directions. Shaver also talked about the different beings that were encountered, for example, the robot master, who are short deformed creatures ride in motorized chairs, the norms, who resemble humans, those that are nearly in extinction, the gnomes and leprechauns, and those that live in sea-filled caves called mers, and those that totally live underwater in caverns called water breathers. Some have seen beings called white gods, whose skin is supposed to be so pale as if they have never seen the sun. Others are described as beings of a dark complexion with red hair. The subterranean world is called Agartha, meaning through the hole, and it has a central sun. The capital of the world is Shambhala, meaning scented by Allah. The temple within this subterranean world is called the Golden Palace, place of illumination, or with the golden aura, which is located in Shambhala. The caverns in the earth are not naturally formed, however, they have been hollowed out. Many have collapsed and have been reconstructed. There's a cavern connecting from the United States to Australia and through the Atlantic Ocean. The extraterrestrials are making shuttles where they can transport themselves from place to place. The extraterrestrials that are human-like have to travel in your time and space. Other beings can step through stargates and other dimensions. These beings also use crafts that are located inside of the earth and in the seas. To power these underground cities, they use the energy from the energy grid that surrounds the earth, or simply tap into the magnetic force in the earth. There are many points on the earth that sit directly on major points or vortices of the energy grid, such as the Great Pyramids of Giza, Egypt, the Bermuda Triangle at Bimini, Gabon, in West Africa, which is a natural atomic reactor because the high levels of uranium, Easter Island in the Pacific Oceans with its megaliths, and German underground bases in Antarctica, to name a few. If you noticed, many of these are also entrances to underground caverns and to the inner world where all these different beings live. Air flows down inside the earth just like in caves and everywhere else, because the earth is hollow. Nothing is solid, not even the human body. Don't mix those beings living in caverns of the earth with those living in the center of the earth. The center is a controlled base where meetings are held and controlled by benevolent beings, although malevolent or disagreeable beings are allowed to come there. Many people have given accounts of beings in the subterranean world. Admiral Richard E. Byrd of the United States Navy flew into several openings of Antarctica that entered 1,700 miles into the North Pole and the Arctic 2,300 miles into the South Pole and went well down into the subterranean cities. He sat down and talked to a group of people called Flugelrods, who are a blonde-headed people who he says are the long-lost Aryan race. These beings came from Aldebaran in the Orion star constellation. They took Admiral E. Byrd to an inner chamber where other extraterrestrial beings were meeting, which was where he met the shaggy beings. There, commonly known as Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, Seti and Abominable Snowman, are really Syrians. The reptilian species known as the Dracos were also there with the Greys. There were also humanoid types present from Pleiades, originally from Aldebaran. All of Theses' beings were like the secretaries of state from all different types of beings. There was one whom Thev called the Benevolent One, who is the master of all their masters. They have nothing to do with the Rizkians, the Elohim called Anunnaki. The purpose of their meeting was about the planet Earth. They said basically the planet Earth was in deep trouble because it is out of balance with the ecology, out of balance spiritually, out of balance because of its axis. On its axis, out of balance in every way. Humans spend their lives destroying and many destroying themselves and will not be a part of the intergalactic community until humans change. There are wars going on right now between the troglodytes, that live in the inner Earth, and the ones that come to visit the Earth, the beings from Zeta Reticuli, a binary star system. Not only are there wars going on in the inner Earth, there are wars going on the surface of the Earth and in the skies right now. The fights that are going on in the skies are covered because they sew up the sky. This process is done by using planes, a process where artificial clouds form and blanket the sky. There are beings that are fighting each other for control of this planet Earth, and the conflict is heightening. These beings fight to kill when it is for food. They fight to conquer and turn the conquered into slaves. It is the weaker defending themselves from the dominant. It is all about the survival of the fittest. The entrances to this subterranean world are all over this planet Earth. Many are found in caves well hidden and exists in as many places on the Earth as there are on the Earth. In order to enter these caverns, you must know where the entrances are, like the polar regions. These entrances will lead you to a whole different tropical environment in such places as Peru, Brazil, Guatemala, as well as Arizona, the North and South Poles, Africa, Germany, Egypt, Himalayas, Montana. Because there are so many different species that live in the inner caverns, there may or may not contact the people that live on the Earth. These beings really don't want anything from surface dwellers, because they are far more advanced than humans. However, some do come to educate, others come for blood, for those that eat human flesh. Most of them keep to themselves, and are concerned with the condition of the planet, because what happens on the surface can affect what happens on the inside. Take for instance the air filters down to these underground cities. If the radiation in the air is high, like when the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, on August 6, 1945 AD, and on Nagasaki, on August 9, 1945 AD, which made many subterranean crafts come to the surface, and many crafts came from other planets to the Earth. Many scientists insisted that there was no life on Yaa-Nun, Mars, even after evidence was presented to them. Many were in opposition to the idea of a modern Martian civilization that was brought forth in 1877 AD, by the Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli. The professor studied the planet with a telescope. He saw about 40 thin, dark lines crisscrossing the surface of Yaa-Nun, Mars. He called it canali. Canali is an Italian word meaning channels, which are natural waterways. However, it has been mistranslated as canals, which are man-made. Thus the topic of canals of Yaa-Nun, Mars, was born. People have already gone to Yaa-Nun, Mars. The planet is now inhabitable. There are bases set up there for a selected group of people called the Brain Team. Not everybody from the planet Earth will be going to live on the planet Mars. When I say selected, I am referring to a group of people that are called the elite in your society. Your planet is on its way to inevitable self-destruction. However, before this happens, the elite of your planet will leave the Earth in an exodus, which is called Alternative 3. Alternative 1 was to reduce the population by mass genocide. They enlist and draft millions of people into the armed forces and send them out in wars to kill and be killed. And as you know, millions of people are killed in wars. This was just one way to control the population. Not to mention mass genocide, which also occurs through things such as AIDS, sickle cell anemia and famine, etc. Alternative 2 was to build underground cities to escape the atrocities of this world. They have built an underground road that leads from New York to London, and are now in the process of connecting all of Europe together to make it one country like the United States. One of the best known top secrets involves a hidden city, about 4 miles west of the White House. This hidden city is located under the Appalachian foothill called Mount Weather. The underground city is complete with 3-story buildings, streets, and a lake for drinking water. This city is designed to shelter thousands of selected government officials if there's ever a nuclear attack on Washington, D.C. Its buildings contain computers which duplicate the data stored elsewhere in the country, information vital for rebuilding current records, census data, social security files, military intelligence, even income tax data are stored in the system. Similar shelters are located at Fort Ritchie, Maryland, Colorado Springs, Omaha, and a few other secret locations. This is the effort taken by the United States to build special wartime shelters. The fact that there are subterranean worlds, and people living in the interior of the earth, is not a secret. In fact, this is quite ancient. In all of the ancient teachings of the Egyptians, Sioux Aztecs, Mayans, Hindus, etc., there are legends of the inner world. Behind every legend, there can be found some truth. A group of facts around which the legend was built. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a strange and mysterious boatman had charge of the souls of the dead. The boat would either transport the human soul up into the region of the stars, or if the soul needed more basic training or possibly more discipline, the boatman would pilot the souls along the river Styx, and this river led deep down into the interior of the earth. Many of the chambers of the pyramids lead to the inner world. A legend of the first Inca Manco Capac related that he and his followers, the founders of the Inca realm, came from underground caves, while the people of that time had great respect for snakes because of Uruguay, the god of underground treasures. This god is depicted as a large snake whose tail has a hanging pendant from it, with the head of a deer and many little gold chains. In Southern and Central America, as well as in Mexico, the ancient people did acknowledge the existence of subterranean caves, chambers or tunnels. The Sioux Aztecs of Mexico believe that just as there are 13 heavens, sometimes 9 or 12, there are 9 subterrestrial levels through which the deceased must pass before reaching the underworld, Mictlan, land of the dead, also called Xiconamictlan, ninth place of the dead. The lord of this underworld is Mictlantecutli, the lord of the dead. The Mayas of Yucatan also believed in the existence of underworlds. They were icy cold, as are most subterranean chambers or tunnels. These underworlds were presided over by Apuk, the lord of death, the underground in the Mayan sacred writings, the Popol Vuh, as well as in the book of Chilam Balam of Chamail. When Peru and Chile were ruled by the Incas, they also reveal knowledge of the underground. Sapai, the god of death, had an underground dwelling, a much feared place of darkness. Catacombs, the god of the earth, caused underground rumbles in subterranean places where huge stones fell after he had shaken the earth. In the small village of Casal Pala, Italy, in the year 1902 AD, workmen who were digging a well, literally fell into the earth. What they discovered, or rather rediscovered, was the outer room of the Maltese cave entrance. Since the well was to be dug for a house which was on the main street named Hypogeum of House Afflienti, named after the street beneath in which it was discovered. A hypogeum is the Latin name for an underground structure. Later, this series of underground rooms was discovered to have been located in the middle of an ancient Neolithic village. From the construction of the entrance stones, it is now assumed that at certain times, a human sacrifice was chained before the entrance. The entrance and the walls and ceilings of some of the passageways and rooms have been found to be decorated with red ochre and primitive art designs. However, when first discovered, the 3 caves were crammed with as many as 30,000 skeletons of men, women, and children. It is said that there are a few burial chambers inside of these vaults. They are only a few square feet, being just large enough for one to crawl through. There have for years been rumors that one of these burial chambers does not end, however, it continues into deeper and unexplored caverns beyond. This was the subterranean passage and chamber which was referred to years ago in an article which appeared in the August 1940 issue of National Geographic magazine. The article stated the following concerning several people who disappeared in these catacombs without a trace. Many subterranean passageways, including ancient catacombs, now are a part of the island's fortifications and defense system. Supplies are kept in many tunnels, others are bomb shelters. Beneath Valletta, some of the underground areas served as homes for the poor. Prehistoric men built temples and chambers in these vaults. In a pit beside one sacrificial altar lie thousands of human skeletons. Years ago one could walk underground from one end of Malta to the other. The government closed the entrances to these tunnels after school children and their teachers became lost in the labyrinth while on a study tour and never returned. The tunnels under the hypogeum have been sealed off ever since a school teacher took 30 students into the caves and disappeared, guide and all. It was stated that the walls caved in on them. Search parties were never able to locate a trace of these people. It is said that for weeks the wailing and screaming of children was heard underground in different parts of the island, however no one could locate the source of the sound. These underground entrances have been sealed off and nobody is allowed to investigate the site.